Almost everyone is familiar with the age-old saying, "Pride doth cometh before the fall." From a new kid standing up to his bullies, to an obnoxious Karen being called out for her racist comments, to the Starbucks barista, you can apply this proverb pretty much anywhere. And you'd be surprised to find out that it has held true since the beginning of time. How, you might ask? Before man first wandered around the Garden of Eden, God had to contend with the most prideful of all his creations, Lucifer. Driven by an overly inflated ego thanks to his status amongst God's creations at the time, Lucifer, Satan, or the devil, as many of us may know him by, became prideful and overambitious. And this, among other events, led to his downfall, making him the biggest antagonist against history. While some faiths are entrenched in the belief that Lucifer was indeed a fallen angel, there are others who believe that he is just one of the many mortal kings whose pride made him believe that he was above the admonishment of God. Either way, it appears that whatever form this entity took, his pride sent him plummeting down from his status. In today's video, we're going to take a look at who exactly Lucifer was and why he fell so hard. Let's dive right in. The best place to start would be the assertion that Lucifer may not have been one of God's angels, but an early king who just didn't know his place in the presence of God's might. Of course, most of us are familiar with the concept of Lucifer being an all-powerful being born to bring light to the world. In fact, Lucifer is Latin for light bringer or morning star, a term many of us will be more familiar with. So how is it that the name Lucifer was assigned to such an important figure in the Hebrew religion? The truth of the matter is that Lucifer is only referred to once in the book of Isaiah, where his tale remains the same as the one we know in that he has suffered an almighty fall from an exalted position. However, while some believe that this is in reference to the fallen angel that we know and loathe today, many other schools think that this reference to Lucifer in the book of Isaiah is made to a Babylonian priest that was overcome by his own hubris. Mortal and not a supreme being like one of God's archangels, this king is considered to have gone against the will of God in one of the worst ways you could back then. He persecuted God's people with impunity. To make matters worse, this mortal king truly believed he was beyond God's reproach. Suffice to say, he was soon met with the wrath of God. What's important about this is that although Lucifer in question may not have been the fallen angel that we're all familiar with, pride still sent his high position crashing down under the will of God. So how did the tale of Lucifer become about a fallen angel rather than this mortal Babylonian king? It's believed that the Christian scribes who were literate in Latin took this opportunity to fit a story about a fallen angel into the scripture in order to create this new narrative. By the time King James oversaw the translation of the Bible from Latin to English, St. Jerome, the man who was responsible for these translations, completed the incorporation of the fallen angel during this process, forever replacing the Babylonian mortal monarchs forever. So we turn to the normalized account of who and what Lucifer was. Once again, we return to the time when God created the heavens and his host of angels, of which the most powerful ones were the archangels. Among these archangels, Lucifer ranked at the top, not the mortal king, but the soon-to-be fallen angel who permeated his way into the scripture once the Christian scribes got the chance to implement these changes. Much like the Babylonian king, Lucifer was a prideful being filled with hubris, thanks not only to his power, but also to his beauty, divinity, and strength, all attributes that pointed to his perfection. Things that made him believe that this was why he was considered God's favorite. Unfortunately, this hubris, convoluted by the fact that he felt that he was God's favorite and the fact that he understood God the most, made him believe that he should rise above God and rule in his stead. A blasphemous concept to even fathom. Ultimately, he decided that he must overthrow God and rise higher than him. Misled and blinded by this assumption of superiority over the one who created him and everything around him, Lucifer was able to deceive about 1/3 of the other angels around him to join his cause and plant him as the ruler of the heavens and the entire universe. This should have been the point where everyone should have recognized the iniquity that marked his purported perfection, but alas, this was ignored. Instead, his hosts of angels waged war against God, and as such, a massive war of the universe ensued in the heavens long before we were created from clay. Unfortunately for the Morning Star, if you can summon some sympathy for his mutinous being, his pride and superior intellect prevented him from seeing a massive hindrance in the path of his aspirations. His fellow archangel Michael, the powerful right hand of God. Such was the strength and competency of Michael that God didn't even have to raise a finger in this war that was waged against him and his position. And such was the nature of this route that Lucifer was forced to transform himself into an all-consuming dragon. Ultimately, Lucifer was forced to surrender as to the tip of St. Michael's spear. Such was the power of God that the absolute annihilation of Lucifer's coup was smothered by one of God's obedient angels. Following this, Lucifer earns his other well-known name, Satan. However, that's all he gains as he's sent plummeting from heaven. Not only does he lose his favor with God, he, along with the others who stood with him, is exiled from heaven forever as he fell from heaven in a bolt of lightning into a lake of fire and brimstone where the beast and the false protest are. There they shall be tormented for all of eternity and thereafter. However, rather than showing some remorse for his actions and seeking redemption, Lucifer's prideful nature remained even as he was cast out. From the moment he landed in that lake of fire and brimstone, Lucifer began to plot to his revenge instead. As he realized he was no longer God's favorite, he decided to sabotage and destroy God's new favorite creation, you and me, i.e., mankind. As such, we can point to the temptation of Adam and Eve and their eventual expulsion from the Garden of Eden following Satan's influencing of the pair to eat the forbidden apple. However, some argue that the treacherous serpent that deceived Adam and Eve was never Lucifer, but instead a crafty creature who was manipulated by the devil to carry out his evil intentions. As there are references to Lucifer being a snake in the Bible, and there is no supporting evidence of the fact that the snake was a being of its own self, the blame for the corruption of mankind lay at the feet of Lucifer. To wrap it all up, the main morale of the story remains that pride does come before a fall, and whether Lucifer was a mere mortal unaware of his limitation before God due to his hubris, or the arrogant fallen angel that is still yet to learn its place as it seeks to drag mankind into the mud, this saying will always apply. Just remember that whatever your position or your capabilities, you will never be more powerful than the High God. Well, that's all for today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe so you'd be notified about our next video. Trust me, you don't want to miss any of them.